Mighty companions, holy bearers of the light of God, coming together to look with Jesus, for him to help us remember that we're always holy and we can't be anything other than holy. And this really deep look at just this relishing ordering thought and wanting to have some thoughts be more important than others. With these first 3 lessons of the year, lesson 3, I do not understand anything I see in this room, and how much the itch is to understand everything, to compare and to contrast and just build little thought stories and then kind of dive in and live inside there when it's really depth of the light. You can ask Jesus, these little thought stories, little comparisons, are there an attempt to kill the light out of our mind, the mind? Like with no one doing it, you'll hear that some spiritual teachers say, oh, no one's doing that. There's no one here to do it. There isn't anyone to hear, yet it's the play of consciousness. Totality playing as though it's many little fragments, little tiny fragments of infinite. So we thank those of you that are joining us, this mighty brigade, to be helped so much by the one who knows with each other, and then be for the voice for God that we're meant to be. It's our voice, the voice for God, and listen and hear it. So if you feel this calling from Jesus to be with us and he's really encouraging the joining, then text us and we'll add you to the messenger joining in light. It's a new covenant messenger group, and that's where beings are really jumping very diligently on with each other to see what's true and to learn to listen. Jesus is providing this as a means to listen so deeply and hear his voice and speak his voice, our voice, the voice that sings the song of happiness rather than comparisons and contrasts and what isn't, the what isn't voice, the voice of what isn't happening. So Jesus, will you show us just so deeply this lesson, like so that it's the only thing that I think about today? Is that possible? He says yes. Okay. It doesn't seem possible not to understand anything I see in this room, on this street, from this window, in this place, on this street. I don't understand anything. As soon as the thought arises that it could be understood, is that all pain and suffering, Jesus? Let's ask him. As soon as there's like one idea that something of the world can be understood, is that suffering? And hear his answer. That's the relishing. The relishing of something being wrong. Okay. Is it possible to be without thoughts, Jesus? It's helpful when he reminds me that. They're not needed. A supreme being doesn't need thought at all. That's supreme happiness, not to play with those little thought paper tigers in there. So Jesus, is it really possible to walk down the street and not understand anything? He says your happiness depends on it. That's humbling. That's why we listen for his voice, the only interpretation there is of any value in this world. So we can just rest and know that he will tell us, he will let us know. Jesus, will you let me know which thoughts to have that are most helpful until I see there are no thoughts at all? That's the great comfort because of that addiction to trying to find our identity through thought. Try to construct a little person origami project. I'm going to fold together. I can remember saying to him, just going, no, Jesus, I really do want to congeal into an object and feel like an object. Want it like, except I could tell that there was, I said to him, I want to be like Jell-O, the wanting of feeling like an object. Except you don't really know how deep that goes. That's what I realized. How deep that really goes until he starts showing, come here, let me show you this. Let me show you that addiction to thought and comparisons and making some thoughts more important than other thoughts. And relishing, and see the relishing of trying to understand everything. I'm going to ask him if there's anything more in there. Jesus, is there any desire to understand something? Okay, will you show it to me? Is that helpful to look at? And really asking him every miracle. Like, can I have a miracle on this? Can you show me what the miracle is? Because we're never upset for the reason we think. So we try to get a miracle on, a physical symptom. I want to feel better in the body rather than look directly and see the underlying cause. So now he's really bringing us down to say, okay, let me show you every underlying cause is the desire not to know yourself exactly as you are right now. So Jesus, every time I try and understand something, I won't know who I am and hear that answer. It's like, yeah. Because the way the ego understands things, it starts ordering thoughts. He's saying that it'll order those thoughts to make some things more important than other things. It's the way it breaks out fragmentation in the world to make some objects more important than others and try to make understanding out of it. And it likes comparing two stories. Like, here's one story, now here's a better story that will make my life better. Try to get salvation and understanding. Jesus, is there any desire below my level of awareness to get salvation through understanding something? Apply this idea in the same way as the previous ones without any distinction of any kind. And he's showing us to look everything with sameness, that we don't understand anything. Can anything be truly understood the way through thought? Can anything be understood through thought? He says thoughts don't exist. See that in the light of divine being, thoughts aren't there. We can only dream thoughts, Jesus. Hear that answer. The thoughts can only be dreamed. So thoughts are desire for dreaming, and here is the answer, yes. Do we really relish thoughts, Jesus? And he goes, yep. They're your little prized possessions, he's telling me. A little prized possession. That's why we're forgiving them. Just forgive them all to be cleared. As desirable. Whatever you see becomes a proper subject for applying the idea. I don't Let's see. I do not understand anything I see in this room. See how not understanding anything's freedom. The tiniest tension is trying to understand something. He's saying, yes, the tiniest tension. And then you start seeing how many tensions there are, how many things we're trying to understand or label and form and give it some kind of meaning to get safety and salvation in it. Safety and salvation and understanding. Be sure that you do not question the suitability of anything for application of the idea. Yeah, see how the ego tries to discriminate and exclude some things. Oh, trying to tell Jesus, are we always trying to tell you that we understand something better than you? That's what we're trying to tell God. So, yeah, he's on you. We're trying to tell God we understand things more than him. He says that's the argument. That's the whole argument, to argue with God that we know better. Yeah. He says that in the course. It's helpful when that detonates, when you just, oh, yeah, right. Okay, that's another way in which the ego plays to explain to God how it needs to how it needs to be. That's when it gets really funny. Oh, I just explained to God how it's supposed to be. It's like insisting. I can see that. Yeah, he's showing me. It's insisting. Yeah, like he says in the course, it's insisting we know better. I know better. How are that playing consciousness? The one-upmanship on God. So is understanding things, Jesus, a one-upmanship? See, that he's just saying directly, that's usurping the power of God, trying to usurp it without being able to. See that the light's not usurping anything. It just is. Okay, so light. These are not exercises in judgment. He's already held it. Point 3, number 3, lesson 3. Trying to move the mind already beyond judgment. To look at everything equally and not know what it is. To see that habit in the mind. Jesus, can you show me anywhere I really want to know where something is? He's really got to help us. Because I know all day long when I first started doing these lessons, I knew it was so hard to remember them. Now I know why, because I don't want to. Jesus, is there any part of my mind? Is there any desire to forget this lesson today? He says every time you understand something, you're desiring to forget the lesson and remember the idea that something could be understood in form. That thoughts have true meaning. You're giving meaning to thoughts that it doesn't have. It can't have meaning. Jesus, ask him, Jesus, can thoughts have any meaning whatsoever? That's why they have to be turned over to his interpretation to be used for spirit. See, he doesn't make anything wrong. Even thoughts, he's not making thoughts wrong. It's the ego that makes them and then wants to duke it out with them. He's using them. When he uses thoughts, I can't explain that. They're holographic. They're expressions of totality rather than that releasing. And I'm asking, so they become like expressions of miracles, expressions of infinite love, because no thoughts are real. But rather than the spirit's using them for the expression of totality, rather than to use them to try to make a person out of them, to make an opinion, like a better opinion. to try to make a other, to make a no of God out of them, construct a little decoration that says no to God. And so then the Spirit uses them in wholeness and in celebration of the infinite. So even the thoughts can be, because they're innocence. He's teaching us their innocence. Unless, if they're used by the Spirit, you can't miscreate. He's saying when you speak my voice of this infinite love, you can't miscreate. See, it's being used in wholeness. It's being used by love to serve love infinitely in the celebration of love, rather than to hold the idea of imprisonment in the mind. Anything is suitable if you see it. Anything. He's showing us how everything, that nothing can be understood. Jesus in truth and the light of divine being, can anything be understood? Is that supreme happiness, not understanding anything? Feel how much love comes from that. He says, as soon as you understand, you deny. You deny yourself everything given by the Father. See, he's already starting lesson 3 to show us how it can't be understood anything. Zero, zip, nada. That understanding is death to light. It's death to perfect happiness. Like, until that's really, we go down with them and really see it with them, how, because there's such a belief that understanding is salvation, that desire for understanding, to be saved if I just understand this better. See that supreme happiness doesn't know what understanding is of the world. The understanding is biting the apple in the Garden of Eden. It's biting that apple of the knowledge from the tree of knowledge of good and evil. Every time we try to understand in the ways of the world, just bit death apple, death to infinite light. Not real death, because we can't die. Ask the light. Jesus, can I die in truth? Infinite light of being. Infinite happiness. How's that going to die? How's love going to die? It's impossible for love to die. It can be pretended. We can pretend to cast it out like a used rag or something. That's how simply we throw love out, like we toss out a rag, piece of trash. Ask Jesus, is that true, Jesus? It says every time you understand something, you're trying. The slightest thing Jesus asks him, you can hear it. Every time the slightest little... Every time we try to understand something, we just gave ourselves the boot out of heaven. Very humbling, this journey, but it's really happy heaven. Happy, humbling. Anything is suitable as you see it. Some of the things you see may have emotionally charged meaning for you. This is a great sentence. Look at this next sentence. Try to lay the feelings of emotions aside. See, he's already teaching us how charge is death. And to see it as the same. He's not saying go invest in your emotions here. He's saying just lay them aside and see that it's the means that consciousness uses to think and understand something. He's saying, yeah. Nothing's good. He doesn't judge anything. That's what he's trying to see. So let's just say emotions arise. I do not understand anything. Beep. Okay, Jesus, to show me, do I really want to understand something? Show me what I want to understand. He says, just do the exercises, look around, not understanding anything. Cluelessness, as David would say. Jesus, is supreme happiness cluelessness? That's the only answer I ever get. Yeah, he's saying, just know if you're not happy, you just tried to understand something you do not understand. One twitch is trying to understand. He's saying, yes, one single teeny tiny, but what about this one? He's trying to understand something. Try to lay such feelings aside and merely use these things exactly as you would anything else. Jesus, will you help me keep this lesson in mind all day? He says, if you ask me, I will. Because this lesson is the only thing worth focusing on today. So that's it. Do I need anything else other than this lesson? He goes, you think you do. You think you need something other than this lesson when the only thing you've ever needed is this lesson. Okay. Yeah. Jesus says, am I willing to accept this lesson as the only thing that I need? Because when he says no, then we can like go deeper, jump on a call with a mighty companion and look at that. That's a good one. He's, yeah, Jesus saying, yep. He's like a little thumbs up. That we need that was the idea. I can see that now, right? When I first start the course, every other thought is more important than this thought of God. And Jesus is going, let me assure you that it isn't. This is the only thing you need today. That's it. All else will be cared for. The point of the exercise is to help you clear your mind of all past associations, to see things exactly as they appear to you now. He's just showing us how that, trying to understand something, we're going into the past filing cabinet, like that vast array that seems to be a past, and bringing it to what's here. And using it to deny everything is fresh and innocent. Fresh. They talk about fresh. Love is fresh. One, so it's like wonder. Like, yeah, really being born again. Born again, he's saying, just born again into totality. Outside of ideas of time and space. And that's love. It's like, just ask him, Jesus, do I need to label a single thing? I've talked about going birding, being this birding, which is bird watching. And it was like 2 weeks. It's coming. And then we're going birding. And then we're going to search for birds. We're going to hunt, loving that hunt, just like we hunt for understanding of objects. And then you see it, you just catch it. What is that? And trying to understand it. And and look it up in the book to know what it is. Just, guys, start to see how heavy that is. There's no challenge. You might even be given an assignment to go birding. But you see how the mind, the consciousness will use that to break pieces and parts out. And you start to see that's really, if it's not given in guidance, see, Yeah, we need to see how not being in guidance is really death. This the ego is going to interpret guidance. See, it loves to, I understand this guidance you're giving me, Jesus. But the comparative, just take one adventure you've ever gone and look at how many comparisons, how many times they were trying to understand. Like, well, okay, here's this bird. It's more colorful. I'm just tired even talking about it, it's showing me. This bird was better than this bird, and I got to hunt down another bird so I can have every bird. Maybe we'll watch that movie about that bird when they were all going bird hunting, because the spirit can use that. It uses that. But it's just see how those things he's showing me are a denial of innocence, like infinite innocence. And really, we think the comfort's in it, but it's so much pain. Trying to understand it, try to look at an object and just see how many objects we look at. It was like me reading that book, he was showing me with a book, reading a book, and then all story would just bloom out. All these images and these pictures would bloom out of just reading that book. And that's what's happened. Every time we see an object, the mind spins out into a story about it. That was Aunt Martha's little table over there. And, it paints consciousness. Well, we can learn from that, just kind of observing how consciousness is generating pictures and stories. Just a single object triggers a thought, triggers emotion. Like me walking around my aunt's house after she's died and looking at all the pictures and going, I'll never see that again. I'll never be here with my, just looking, the loss hunt, the hunt for loss in objects, which obscures infinite light from the mind. Ask Jesus, does that obscure it? Until we see how exhausting that is. Yes, he's saying, yes, see how it's so not natural. Jesus, is it natural for us to look at an object and give it meaning? And hear his answer like, no. So he's trying to break that habit. And then we're screaming, Jesus, don't take the objects away from me, when it's death in it. The point of the exercise is to help you clear your mind of all past associations to see exactly as they appear to you now, and to realize how little you really understand about them. It's really look at this new, right? Do I really, there's so many assumptions, like even picking up a water bottle. Simple things like we think we know about it. And then we can't see it in the totality. Like that's the habit of consciousness, to just take that water bottle and break it out of the hole. To hide from the recognition of happiness and light that's here. Realize how little. Jesus, will you help me see how little I really understand about everything? He said, that's love. That's my function. Oh, that's just mush. That's just mush. It is therefore essential that you keep a perfectly open mind, unhampered by judgment. In selecting the things to which the idea for the day, completely open mind, because that's the other thing he's showing, is the play to choose certain things and not be willing to look. You see, oh my God, this is so deep. Like how consciousness plays to make it okay to look at some objects, but don't, don't look at that. Don't look in that area. To be completely open to the looking. he said that's supreme happiness, the complete openness. That's why he says that about teachers of God are completely open. For this purpose, one thing is like another, equally suitable, and therefore, to use all things, therefore equally useful. Love is having everything, have no understanding of anything, and use everything equally. Let him use everything equally to show us that it all points back to infinite. Because God is in everything I see. As soon as we understand this, we've lost God. He says, yes. As soon as one object is chosen over another object, God is lost. Seems dead to us. So we're fighting him to keep meaning in objects. We're just duking it out. Ask him, Jesus, am I duking it out with you to keep meaning in some objects over others? To keep God out of what I see? He says, this is so touching. He says, let me show you. Let me show you. The way you look at the world is godless. Let me show you that the way that you look at this world is godless. Yet being surrounded by God, like that little fish that I talked about, swimming around in the ocean and going up to everyone and going, can you show me where the water is? He's showing us that we're the little fish asking for water and everything when we're surrounded by water. We are water. We're love itself. And how we separate out objects to deny ourselves and then duke it out with Jesus. I want to keep this, Jesus, you can take everything except for whatever. And look at the words in it. Oh my God, he's showing me the words in that. You can see that the word, the belief that he's taking something, everything, and then but. The belief in sacrifice, that it's sacrifice to look around and not understand anything. That's really the belief. He's saying, yeah, that's the belief right there. That it's actually sacrifice to look around and not understand everything. That's the ego's play. You can ask them, they'll tell you. He's saying, see the death in that. The death to eternal being. In the belief that there's sacrifice and not understanding everything, not understanding anything. He said, you will not relinquish it if you believe there's salvation in understanding something. That's why we don't accept the miracle. He's saying we don't accept the miracle because we believe salvation is in it. And keeping that, we have an understanding that's more than God's understanding, and we want to keep it. And that's how we keep it, by not releasing to the miracle. Thank you, Jesus, for bringing us together in holy purpose to look this deeply. So tomorrow we'll have a meeting of those who are joining, for those who've been joining over chapter 20, to come together, talk, just to speak on what Jesus is showing them deeply in their heart about these desires and beliefs. And if you haven't joined on chapter 20 and would like a joining partner, then you can contact us and we'll set you with one. It's a very deep way and loving way to come together to hear and speak the voice for God, and then have him explain all those. If you haven't seen A New Covenant, all he did showed me, for me, is he told me collect the beliefs, like tons of beliefs out of the Course in Miracles, and then he would show me where the desire, and then he'd show me, here's what you're really desiring here. And then I'd go through each one with him and go, okay, is that desire there? Yes or no? To look deeply. And then, as I've said many times, like, oh my gosh, that's still there. But the relief that comes from seeing it's still there and that it can be cleared. So if you'd like to join the brigade in that, just text us and Kelly will help you find a partner to look deeply and where you're both hearing the voice for God and speaking it and practicing that to show us that we don't understand anything whatsoever, really. So we'll set a time for that and we'll put that up on the Joining in Light messenger group. We'll announce a time. Probably be in the early afternoon so that our mighties in Europe can jump on with us, maybe 1 or 2 o'clock. Thank you for joining us today. Thank you, Jesus, for showing us the way to each other, that every day we can meet the love of our lives through our brother. Amen.